I think they're two smart guys.
Beyond that, smart. A lot of people are smart.
Okay, well, beyond that, I think they're good lawyers. Good lawyers.
Presented themselves in a very effective and honorable way in this trial.
I think they presented themselves in a very effective way. Whether they presented themselves in an honorable way, that's another issue.
What issue is that? Why? What did they do that wasn't honorable?
Well, you know, I think you have to look back at the record, look back at some of the accusations, some of the vicious personal attacks, some of the venomous arguments. I don't know that is necessarily honorable. You know, I remember doing my summation, and I remember arguing to the jury and saying to the jury, I know that the defense lawyers behind me are shaking their heads right now. That type of stuff is inappropriate. All of the facial gestures, the head nodding, you know, the shaking of the head and all of that other stuff that the defense did. That's not honorable either.
They believe, and obviously the defense argued.
They said they believe.
The difference is they said it but don't believe it.
Well, who knows
what do you
believe.
think?
Well, I don't know. Finish the question, I'll tell you what I think.
Do you think they believe that O.J. Simpson did it?
Do I think they believe it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can only speculate. I think that, I would think that any reasonable person would think that he did it.
Oh, that's too broad. Do you think that they, because of what they know, should have the same conclusion you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you doubt that they believe that the police engaged in misconduct and may have planted blood with preservative in it in the sock and other places?
Do I doubt that? Well, you know,
that's a crucial point that they made, isn't it?
Well, that would call for speculation on my part as to what they believe.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I'm not convinced that their experts necessarily believed it. I mean, they certainly testified to it, but, you know, that's speculation on my part. I don't believe it.
Think Cochran believed Simpson is innocent?
That's speculation on my part as well.
Well, what's your speculation?
Well, I wouldn't care to speculate. All I know is what I believe. I think I'm a reasonable man.
Let me run through some of the characters. Judge Ito, you have said in interviews, it wasn't his courtroom. He wasn't running that courtroom. Johnny Cochran was running that courtroom.
True.
Was he beyond his competence or what?
Cochran?
No, Ito.
No, I think Ito's a very bright man. I think he's a bright judge.
Why was he not running his own courtroom then, in your judgment?
Well, it may have something to do with the presence of the cameras. He may have been starstruck. He may have been overwhelmed. I think that the fact that he was starstruck had something to do with it. And then, too, there was the issue of Mark Furman and his wife, Captain Peggy York. Had that issue been one presented to the jury, had Captain York been called to testify, Judge Ito would have had to recuse himself. And the party most likely to call Captain York would have been the defense. Then again, Judge Ito was up for re-election. So it could be a variety of factors. Johnny Cochran is a very influential and persuasive man in the city of Los Angeles. Marsha Clark and Chris Darden were blue-collar lawyers, they're civil servants. So there could be a variety of reasons. Certainly not due to a lack of mental competence on the part of Judge Ito. He's a very bright man.
Back to Cochran. How brilliant was he in the courtroom?
I would not describe Cochran as having been brilliant.
What would you describe him as being?
Well, I think that he was allowed to run amok, and I think he did just that.
Played the race card.
Played the race card.
And that, in your judgment, is what?
In my judgment?
Yeah.
Under the circumstances, unnecessary, perhaps immoral. I don't know. I don't think race had a place in this case. They never ever proved that Mark Furman planted any evidence.
Do you believe he did?
I do not believe he did. I didn't then. I don't now.
And you've seen nothing to indicate in your judgment that Mark Furman planted any evidence, whether he was a racist or not, and you accept the fact that he was a racist?
I certainly accept the fact that he is a racist.
Right.
And I've not seen anything that would convince me that he planted any evidence.
Because it seemed to me, from a distance occasionally, that they wrapped the LAPD around the prosecution's case and squeezed it tight.
Really?
Don't you think so?
No.
That they made the LAPD, they put them on trial, Furman and Enna, and that was how they created reasonable doubt.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think that?
No, I think they wrapped racism, racial epithets, and groundless allegations of racism around the prosecution's neck and around the judge's neck and around the jury's neck. And I don't think they created a reasonable doubt. I think they created an incentive to let O.J. Simpson get away with the crime of the century.
An incentive?
Yeah. And then that incentive being to pay the system back. Let's get one for us. It's us versus them. Let's win this one for the Gipper.
What was the worst moment for you? Was it when he got up and in the famous tape and said he was going to apologize for you?
I think that sitting here today in reflection, I think the worst moment was after hearing the not guilty verdict and having to turn to face the Goldmans and the Browns. That was a day and an experience I had not been looking forward to.
What was it like?
Well, it was hard because we had let them down. The system had let them down. They'd been denied their day in court, essentially. In my view, the jury hadn't deliberated at all. Ron and Nicole deserved more. The Goldmans and the Browns deserved more.
Of course, the jurors would say to you, Mr. Darden, we had reasonable doubt. We listened to all the evidence. We carefully considered it. We were there for a long, 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 long time. Don't blame the jury now. Blame yourself. Blame the prosecution. But don't blame us. We did our duty.
Well, I'm sure they would say that. What choice would they have? I do blame the prosecution to some extent, and I do that right there in that book.
But you seem more, Christopher, to blame the system. More than anything, it's the system that's in contempt.
Well, you know, I think it's a great system. I think it's the best possible. But it's only as good as the people in it.
And
it's
here,
only as good as the people
in it failed.
The people in the system failed.
The judge, the jury, the prosecution, and the defense failed because they weren't honorable in the way they conducted themselves. Do they have a bigger duty than simply to do all they can, that is, within reasonable restraints of ethical conduct, to defend their client? I assume Cochran said, my charge is to defend a man that I said I believed to be innocent. I did it in every way I know how. That's what being a lawyer is about.
Well, that's not what being a lawyer is about. When you're a criminal defense lawyer, you defend your client. You interject the notion that Cochran believed Simpson to be innocent. That isn't part of the equation.
I know it isn't.
Okay. Defense lawyers defend guilty men and women all the time. And the fact that the lawyer may believe them to be guilty, defense lawyers say is irrelevant.
Let me just come back to this. Do you believe Cochran thinks Simpson is guilty? Do you believe that? Not whether you know it, but do you believe it?
That would be speculation on my part. I assume that
speculate for us. I mean, you know, you've invested so much of your life into this, and it's changed your life dramatically. You're going to leave something that your mother says you were perfectly suited to do, to be a good lawyer, to do other things in the public sector, perhaps politics, but you were trained as a lawyer, and you had, and teach law. But before this trial, you had, what, 100? How many cases had you won?
Well over 100.
100
trials,
cases
yes.
you'd won. Capital murder cases, other kinds of criminal cases.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, this one. What? And it was because this one was so in contempt that it turned you against.
No, not at all. I had been considering leaving trial work even before June 12, 1990.